Ну, они, может, и работают, но они не это самое.
Михаил Григорьевич, вы на серединочку.
Ну,
Я пачка.
ну хорошо. Прошу прощения, господа, поскольку у нас...
Apologies, we have to take care of the technology. We are having a slight delay. Tonight we are using simultaneous interpretation, therefore we all have to use a microphone. I have loud voice, but that does matter. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very happy to see all of you, our alumni. No, not at all. I'm not sure if we have our students in the room. Yes, we do. Welcome to everyone. We really are happy to have you with us. I have the honor of launching this presentation of the book by Ron Mayer. Let me introduce to you Professor Mayer. The English title of the book is Leadership Agility. The book has been translated, or at least the title has been, yes, it has been translated, so let me explain to you how we learned about the book, where it all comes from. Many of you know that I am a head of the executive MBA program that we have had for over 20 years, together with Antwerp Business School. So whenever we have a new group, we start by talking about leadership, change management, and for a long time, a friend of mine, Hugo der Kinderen, has been making a presentation on this subject. But now we have a lot of new people. Last year, Ron Mayer joined us. Immediately, the classes that he gave produced wonderful feedback. Ron has been using some methods and concepts that he is describing in the Leadership Agility book, along with his co-author, Ronald Myers. Ronald is not with us tonight. He did not get the visa in due time. We got a lot of interesting feedback. The book deals with some very exciting, unusual concepts. Therefore, our school decided to pay to have this book translated and publish the book in Russia. It took us only about 6 months. In fact, it was Andrei Yegorov, one of our graduates, who was in charge of Emporium Lingua, a translating company. Now he is a VP at ABI. So they have their offices in the United States. I would love to be involved in translation myself, but I could not do that without the green light from the management of the school. So the person who gave the blessing to this work, Sergei Mesayedov, is now going to make a few remarks before we pass it over to Ron. I have asked Ron to do more than just a presentation of the book. I asked him to do a kind of a master class. We want it to be as interactive as possible. We want to have everybody participate. So once again, I encourage everyone to join us. Please ask questions, but make sure if you want to put a question in Russian, make sure that you use a microphone. Then your question or comment will be translated into English. If you ask a question in English, then you're still encouraged to use a microphone. So any language you use, please make sure you get a microphone first. And now over to Sergei Mesayedov. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues.
Here, at the beginning of this very interesting event, I consider it's an outstanding book. And I shall tell a couple of words about that. And it seems to me that we are lucky that we shall get the information about this new approach in leadership from the man, from the professor, from the practitioner who really created all that. Then I shall continue in Russian. Я не такой добренький, как сказал Михаил.
I'm not a very generous man. I have met with most of you in the audience. I am Sergei Pavlovich Mesayedov. I'm one of the founders of IBS, which we believe is #1 business school in Russia. It's #1, not #2, not #5 or #10. And this book addresses exactly this. 5 years ago, the president of the academy invited me and asked the question, why don't we have any corporate programs? I said, because we are the only big school in the country that operates in the market. And we have a B2C model. It's mostly people who come to study and they pay for themselves. This is our niche, and we don't want to leave it. Our president, though, said that the people in the government and managers of big corporations know other business schools. 5 years later, we did a fintech program with Sberbank. We did a strategic disruptive triangle program, which won an award from S&P International. Since that time, we put together an innovative program for Roselhozbank. We are now launching a training program for the executives of Aeroflot airline. We are building another project with Rosatom, and we have several ideas in the pipeline. Nikolai is launching a very interesting project with one of our Russian companies. So I was getting this question, which I found a bit odd. A head of the corporate university said, "You are all about theory. Have you ever heard about emotional intelligence? Are you familiar with the term agile?" I said, "Of course I am." And this is a conversation that we were having 5 years ago. It's my impression that you just learned this term. I said, "Gentlemen, emotional leadership is something that I've been teaching for 8 years before I came to this school. So we started thinking about it. We needed to change a few things. You are studying in our university, or you have been. We wanted to change the angle. There's been a lot of people who have been studying here, amazing people. You probably know the book by Itzhak Adizes. We supported that publication. But after that, we did not do that again, although several very famous people, real gurus, David Caruso, who described research path, these people have spoken here. They have given us their books. When I learned from Mikhail that there is this new interesting book, I reviewed it and I realized that it was several steps ahead of the theory of emotional intelligence that most corporate universities are now studying. I thought that this was a great opportunity. This was an excellent work done by a practitioner, by a scholar, and this was a great opportunity for us. We wanted the country to see this. We want everybody to know that we have it, something that no one else has. That was how we came to the idea of translating and publishing the translation. So I will cautiously promise that brilliant Russian and international professors would be invited to our school much more frequently. You may or you may not know that we have recently invited Mr. Suzuki, a neuropsychologist, speaking here. His bestseller has been translated into Russian. This was a very interesting presentation. We invited the author, and she is going to talk again at another Moscow venue. This is a great pleasure for me, and it's an honor.
From my point of view, it's a brilliant book, and I hope that it would get you a new perception of leadership. And the most important thing, I hope and I do believe that each of you would get something small or more from this book to develop your leadership style. Because from my point of view, the book is pretty practical. I wish you good luck. I wish you good career. I wish success to you and to your families. And I do hope that today's meeting would be exciting and very interesting. And it's my pleasure to give floor to the major character, to Ron, who created this great book published in Russia today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, after an introduction like that, it can only get worse. So let's see if I can live up to the expectations which have been created. Thank you all very much for coming here on a Friday evening. I can imagine that many of you are thinking about the weekend, and maybe the last thing you're thinking about is an intellectual evening. Maybe the theater would have been better, or maybe a concert would have been better, or maybe even TV at home. But you've all chosen to be here, so I'm going to try to make it worth your while. What I'm going to do in about an hour and 15 minutes, about an hour and a half time, again, please feel free to ask questions. But what I'm going to do is to take you a bit through a voyage. Probably the first half an hour I'm going to be speaking because I really want to set the stage, to give you a bit of an overview of everything that I've written down in the book. And then after about half an hour, then we can get more into some questions and answers, and I'll pick out some bits which I think might be interesting for you, and some illustrations. But I think that so there's also they're making some recordings, and they'd like me to have some some sound bites, so which are easy to put onto YouTube. So therefore, it makes more sense for the first half an hour that it's a little bit more of a lecture. So you're all ready. You can strap yourself in, seatbelts ready, and I'll get started. So what I will be doing is, on this topic of leadership agility, basically we need to discuss three things with one another. You're wondering, what does he mean with leadership agility? But maybe it's just good to start with the two words that it's made up of. So let's first discuss, what do we mean with leadership? It seems very obvious, but it's less obvious than it seems. So first have a discussion around, what do we mean with leadership? Secondly, what do we mean by agility? Again, would seem obvious, but it's not as obvious as we sometimes think. And then once we've understood leadership and we understand agility, we'll put them together and we'll ask ourselves the question, what is leadership agility and how can I become more agile as a leader? So that's more or less the structure that we're going to be going through. And by the way, if you're asking yourself, that's not me, it is some other guy, but that is my son and that is my daughter. So this is indeed a picture that from my own household. I thought I'd make it very personal. So again, that's something. Maybe also a little bit of an insight into leadership is to make it personal. So if we start first with the whole question of what do we mean by leadership. What I find surprising time and time again, and I don't know whether that same thing happens in Russian, because of course it very much depends on how certain words are used in certain languages. But in English, the word leader and the word manager are used almost interchangeably. Actually, it's gotten worse over the last 20 years. If I actually open an annual report and I look there, it says, well, the leadership team of the company. The leadership team? I thought it was the management team. No, it's the leadership team. Somehow or another, that's a little bit more sexy than management team. Maybe management team is old-fashioned. You know how we get into certain type of fashions? For those of you who are studying or have studied for an MBA, if you even think of it, what does MBA mean? Master of Business Administration. Now, how many of us call ourselves business administrators? Very few. That word's passé. That's already long ago. We went from business administrators to managers, and now we want to be really 21st century. Now we have to become leaders. So it's used as an inflationary title. You're not a mere manager. Wow, you're a leader. I wonder what's going to come after leader. But if it's just a fancy word for manager, why talk about leadership? But I think that it's actually fundamentally something different than management, and it's very, very important to make the distinction. So if you give me, say, 5 minutes, say maybe if I can define the word leader, that at least we're on the same page with one another. Just a short check-in. My English is okay? Yeah, it's okay, great. I'm always conscious of the fact that they tell me that as a Canadian, Canadian English is relatively easy to understand, but I never take that for granted. So what do we mean with leadership? For me, if I want to define leadership very simply, I say, you're a leader if other people are following. It's that simple. In the word leadership, you already have I'm leading. How do you tell whether you're leading? Well, if somebody is following you, you're obviously leading. For those of you who dance, in ballroom dancing, someone is leading and someone is following. So that's the way it goes. So if leadership means the fact that you're mobilizing or enticing other people to come along with you on a voyage, it has something to do with influencing, right? Because if you're going to get others to follow, they have to be willing to come along on the voyage. So that's a very simple definition of leadership. Now, how does that make it different than management? So when I ask people, so I wonder whether you're a manager, there's a very easy way of finding out. I just go to someone and I say, can I have your business card? And he gives me his business card and it says, sales manager. Oh, okay, yeah, he's a manager. So then I go to the next one. I say, can I have your business card? Operations manager. Yeah, you're a manager. It's very simple Manager just means a job that you have, a position that you take in a company. It's the formal role that you have. So how do you become a manager? Well, very simply, somebody appoints you to that position. So you try to get the job, and then somebody says, okay, I'm going to promote you. You're now going to become the manager. Now you're in a position, and if you're sitting in this position, this is the chair of the manager. Until recently, so you were an employee, you didn't have your own desk, you didn't have your own room, but now you're the manager. Oh, it's a nice wood desk, it's beautiful. And if you now sit in this chair, if you're sitting in the chair of the manager, now you're allowed to do things. What is a manager allowed to do? If you sit in this chair, you're allowed to spend money. You're allowed to assign people certain tasks. You're allowed to give people feedback on whether you think they've done a good job. You have roles and responsibility. Now you're able to give somebody an assessment. You're allowed to fire somebody. You're allowed to hire other people. All of these things have to do, if you're sitting in this chair, that's what you need to do and that's what you're allowed to do. So the position comes with formal powers. Now go to leader. Who makes you a leader? Is that some? If I go to you, says, yeah, if you're modern, you maybe even have a business card saying operations leader. So, but nobody appoints you to become a leader. How do you become a leader? If you think about it, you actually, if you get people to follow you, it's because people want to follow you. So how do you actually then become a leader? Are you appointed to become the leader? No, you have to work at becoming the leader. You have to win people over to get them to want to follow you. That means I can sit in this chair, but it doesn't really matter that much. It doesn't have anything to do with the position, it has to do with me. If I have the ability to get you to come along, it really has to do with the relationship that I build with you. Who makes me the leader? Well, to a certain extent, me. Because I have to step up and I have to take the lead. Nobody ever comes into my room saying, here, you need to become our leader. No, usually you're sitting behind your desk. You stay behind your desk, you're never going to lead anybody. You have to get up behind your desk, you have to go to people and you say, follow me. And then people go, okay, you've convinced me. So you have to want to lead, and the other has to accept you as a leader. So leadership is something that you win. And it's actually a relationship that we have with one another. It's not something, I don't walk into the building for the very first time and go up to you and say, I am your leader. Then you're going to go, oh yeah, sir? You can say, I am your manager. Ah, that's true. So, yeah, that's true. I am your leader. Well, I don't know. Convince me. So you see that leadership really has something to do with winning hearts and minds. And in that sense, it really has to do with what I bring as a person to our relationship. It's relational, it's not positional. That means it's hard work as a leader because I have to win you over. And it also means that I can't take you for granted. If I'm a manager and you're an employee, I bought you. I hired you. I'm paying money. You're getting a salary. You have to do what I say. You're a human resource, remember? But if I'm a leader and I want to win you over, I have to treat you like a human and I have to try to get you on board. I sometimes say leadership is almost like seduction. How do I touch hearts and minds in a way that you're willing to come along with me? So I have to build a relationship. I have to win you over. That's hard work as a leader. So if you really want to become a leader, you have to start building all of these relationships. Does this make sense? Or is this a definition that you feel comfortable with? It's a big difference. It doesn't mean that a manager cannot become a leader. Actually, I think that in a lot of situations, people hope that the manager also wants to be a leader. Because people don't want to be treated like a human resource. And they think, oh, if only my boss would try to lead me, So it's fine, you can become a manager and still become a leader, but it's the other way around. Just because you're the manager doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be accepted as a leader. You have to work at it. You probably recognize a little bit of a parallel. So I don't know how many of you are married, or at least have a partner. So you can say, well, there's a difference between a husband or a wife and a partner. Because the husband or the wife, you sign on the dotted line, there we are. Well, we're married now, from now on. So I'm the husband, I'm the wife. Now you have to do what? Oh, it doesn't work that way, does it? No, because you become formally a husband or a wife, but you have to keep on working on being a partner. You can never take it for granted because that's a relationship. The other thing is formal, but the partnership, of course there's give and there's take, but you have to keep on working on that relationship. And you have to keep on winning hearts and minds. So if I summarize this and I try to take a look at what's the difference between the world of the manager and the world of the leader. So I just said that management is about having a job and leadership is about playing a role. And you might have formal power, but you might not have a formal position. How do you become one? So, as a manager, I'm appointed. So as a leader, I have to be accepted. And as I said, manager is all about having the formal power, and leader has informal authority. The leader wins you over. You know what the big danger is of being a manager? I just said, if you're being a manager, people want you to lead. The big danger of being a manager is that you have formal power. And if you have formal power, you know what most people do? They use it. I have this power. All of this working on the relationship and convincing people and getting them on board. I'm just going to tell them what to do. I'm the husband around here asking my wife to make dinner and to get me a beer or to, woman, go get me a beer. I'm your husband. Doesn't work, does it? So if you have the formal power, before you know it, you start using it. But as you start using your formal power, it starts to corrode. If you use your formal power, people go, so that's the way you want to deal with me. You're going to force me to do things. Well, sir, go and get your own beer. I know my wife isn't going to buy that one. So if you think that somehow or another this formal position is going to get you what you want, you start believing it, and actually that's going to get you into trouble. So sometimes being the manager already makes you a suspect. He's in a powerful position. He probably thinks I'm just going to do what he says. And particularly if you're in a culture with a high power distance, before you know it, I'm sitting here up high. I'm going to just tell people what to do. And people are going to go, okay, I'll do what you say. Is that person following? I would say what we're actually doing is if you start using the power, if I start using my formal power to get things done, people are going to comply. They're going to say, okay, I'll do what you're saying, and they'll do just enough to not get into trouble. They won't be in it with their heart. They won't be in it with their mind. They'll just be in it with their wallet, thinking, I need to make sure that I keep this person happy. So what we don't have people's commitment. But unfortunately, the thing about humans, or fortunately, is that we're not human resources. We're not. Let me give you just a quick side example. How many of you have actually ever been on a horse? Any horse riders here? Oh, yeah, quite a few. Very good. Well, I'm from Western Canada, so of course I'm a cowboy. So when I was at high school, I worked as a cowboy. And one thing you understand about a horse is that a horse, you have to win it over. You have to lead the horse. Just a few years ago, I was with my university department. We went horse riding. And here there was 15 older, gray, white gentlemen, so all going horse riding. And they were all sitting on this horse, and they said, "Hey, Ron, you're a cowboy. How does this horse work?" How does this horse work? Left, right. Oh, yeah. And how do you start this thing? So, well, you have to say, "Oh, yeah, okay, this is easy." So they were all 15 sitting on their horses. "Okay, let's go, let's go, let's go." What do you think happened? Exactly. Nothing happened. And why didn't anything happen? Yeah, we was trying to manage the horse. So I said to my colleagues, I said, "Come on, guys, what do you think the horse is thinking?" Now, that was a strange idea. What do you mean, what the horse is thinking? I paid for the horse. I said, "Well, I'll tell you what the horse is thinking. The horse is thinking, oh, there's one of these idiot managers on my back. I'm just going to think, what happens if I do? What happens if I don't? Nothing's going to happen. I don't have to comply. I'm just going to stand here." So once you start thinking, how does the horse respond? It's going to respond by being calculative. It's going to think, what if I do? What if I don't? I'm not going to do it. I don't have to. My head is too big for this thing. So, there we go. So the horse is going to stand there. It took a few minutes, and after a while I said, "Do you people understand what you're doing, sitting on this horse?" They said, "What do you mean?" I said, "What's your implicit model?" I said, "What do you mean, implicit model?" I said, "You're treating the horse like something. What are you treating the horse like?" What were they treating the horse like? A motorcycle, right? They were treating the horse like a left, right, kickstart it. I said, "You know what the difference is between a motorcycle and a horse?" What's the big difference between a motorcycle and a horse? Exactly, it has a will. The horse has a will. The motorcycle, you put gasoline into it, you start it, it's a machine, you can control it, it will do exactly what you say. The horse has a will. You have to win it over. Now you can force the horse to do what you want, and he will do it a little bit, but if he doesn't trust you, if he doesn't like you, if he doesn't accept you, he's going to be very nasty to you. He's going to throw you off. Or in most horses, because they're much smarter than we are, when we went riding with these horses, what the horses did, they would walk very close to the tree, and then the people would get the branches against them, and they would almost fall off. And they said, "They're playing with you." They said, no, horses aren't that intelligent. We tend to do the same thing with the people in our company. We're sitting on their backs, and they're thinking, "There's another idiot on there. Do I need to comply? What am I going to do? I'll do just enough." And you think, "Hey, I'm riding this employee." And the employee is thinking, "I'm tolerating this idiot." And that's where we're stuck. So leadership in that sense, when it comes to a horse, did you ever see the movie The Horse Whisperer, many years ago already? So, but you have to make a connection with the horse. He has to do it for you. He has to trust you. He has to believe in you. And for people, it's the same thing. They're not human resources. They're people. So it's about having a win-win relationship. So what's the best possible result? If you manage people, you're going to get an acceptable result. But of course, we want to get excellent performance. And if we want to have a high-performing team, we can only do that by leading people. So my conclusion would be, what's the rule of thumb? Manage things, lead people. I don't know if you can read that. Manage things, lead people. Manage your money. Manage your processes. Manage your buildings. Manage any resource. They don't care. They don't have a will. But if you have a will, I'm going to have to try to get you on board. I have to lead you. And by the way, a horse is relatively easy. Your employees are relatively easy. You know what's really difficult? How about dealing with your colleagues? You don't have any power over your colleagues, and still you need to get them to come along. So when we start talking about leadership this way, it's not only about you lead down. I'm not only trying to get my employees to come along, I'm trying to get my colleagues to come along. But I don't have any formal power. All I can do is try to influence them, build a relationship, get them to accept, touch their hearts and minds. How about partner organizations, customers, suppliers, outside the organization? Again, all I have, of course I can try with some money to get them to do something. But if I really want to build up a partnership, I'm going to have to work on the relationship. But how about leading up? Now it's important to realize leadership has nothing to do with a hierarchy. It's about getting someone to follow. And I would say that very often, a lot of our energy has to go into leading our bosses. Because our bosses don't have all of the right answers. They don't know exactly what to do. Very often, they're very far away from the work floor. How do I convince my boss to come along on a voyage? Are we okay with this definition of leadership? It's a little bit different than we very often see it in the newspapers. The leader tends to be either Mahatma Gandhi, or the CEO of a big company. That's the leader. But potentially we're all leaders, but we're usually not leaders all the time. On certain topics, I'm going to be in the lead, and other topics, I'm going to be a follower. So that's why I like talking about leadership. It's the action that you take. I'm not always the leader. Sometimes I'm the leader, sometimes I'm the follower. Sometimes I exhibit leadership, sometimes I'm exhibiting followership. Okay, so we have a definition of leadership now. Now I want to have a definition of agility. Now, what's the problem if you're building a relationship with all these people? Well, the problem is if I'm just the manager and I can tell people what to do, I can do it my way. I can just say, you're going to have to take me the way I am. I have the power. Shut up, do it my way. But if I'm trying to seduce people, I don't know how that works when you met your husband or your wife or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, but it's not merely only a matter of doing it your way. It's about trying to understand the other and adapting your behavior to make a connection with the other. Connecting goes both ways. You're bringing a little bit of yourself, but you're trying to speak the other's language. You're trying to understand what makes the other tick. You're trying to understand their needs, and you're trying to make that connection. So, as a leader, if you really want to be effective, it's not about you, it's about the other. It's about understanding their needs and being able to connect with a variety of people. You're going to have a lot of different employees. You're going to have a lot of different colleagues. You're going to have a lot of, well, you're going to have one boss, but you might have other people. And you're going to have to deal with all of these different types of people. And they might have different needs, different backgrounds. And I would argue that diversity is only becoming larger. Not only are people very different, I would say that people are getting even more different. 30 years ago, you came to work, suit, tie, and you were corporate man or corporate woman. This is the way that you behaved. Now, more and more, we're bringing ourselves to work. We're being more of an individual, which means I now have to do with much more diversity in types of people that are coming to work. As I start working for international companies, I'm dealing with different cultures. So the diversity is growing so larger again. So I need to be able to deal with a wide variety of people in a wide variety of situations. So if I have one way of connecting with you, if I only have one pickup line, hey, how you doing? It's only going to work with one person. It's not going to work with a lot of different people. So what do I need if I really want to connect with a wide variety of people? I'm going to have a wide variety of styles. It shouldn't be only what I'm good at. It should be about what you need. So agility starts with being able to be flexible to adapt to different people. So one of the basics of agility is flexibility. Flexibility means I can switch between different ways of behaving depending on who I have in front of me. You're his. I'm going to adapt myself to you. Oh, but I need to adapt myself. So every time I'm going to flexibly, in my repertoire of behaviors, I'm going to switch between the different styles. Maybe again an analogy. I don't know how many of you play music, but if you only play classical music and you're invited to come to play at a wedding, and you say, well, what would you like to hear? Somebody will say, can you play a little bit of Prince? No, I only do classical music. Maybe Celine Dion? No, only classical music. You're only going to be able to connect with a few people, not with the entire audience. If you want to be successful at a wedding, you say, what would you like? A little bit of rock music? Sure, I can play that. Oh, a little bit of samba? Sure, I can play that. So if your repertoire of musical styles is broad, you can adapt yourself to a lot of different types of people. And if you can switch and you say, okay, let's go to heavy metal. Okay, let's go to disco. If you can switch between your musical styles, that makes you very flexible. And it makes it possible to connect with different people. So that's a part of agility, is being flexible. But sometimes you need to have more than only the ability to be flexible, because you might not have something in your repertoire. Somebody might say, can you also play some reggae music? I don't have that in my repertoire. Then being agile means not only being flexible between the styles you have, but having the learning ability to learn something new. So besides flexibility, it's also adaptability. Adaptability means learning new things, adding new styles, which is going to make you even better at dealing with different situations. So if you want to be agile, be flexible and adaptable. And then the third thing is, you have to be able to read the audience. You have to be able to understand the other. Because if I have all of these different styles, but I don't read you, then I don't know what to do. So this third thing we call responsiveness. You have to be able to respond to the needs of the other. So if I'm responsive, I'm flexible, and I'm adaptable, I can learn new things, that together would make me very agile. So this is what we're striving towards. We would like to be agile because that's going to make me very effective as a leader. That's how I'm going to be able to connect with so many different types of people. So far, so good. This was almost my half an hour of introduction. So now there's not only different types of people with whom I'm going to connect, but there's also different situations in which I'm going to connect. Again, this means that I'm going to have to be agile. If there's a crisis, I'm going to have to lead differently than if I'm in a reorganization or if I'm in a very stable type of environment. So different situations are going to require different reactions. But it also depends on what type of questions are you dealing with. So there's one last thing that I need to introduce before I go into different types of leadership styles, and that's realizing where do you actually need to lead. And this is what we call the leadership domains. So for most people, they say, I understand where I need to lead. If I meet somebody else and I want to influence Dimitri, then I'm going to try to connect with him one-on-one. That type of a connection between the leader and another individual, that's what we call interpersonal leadership. So if I'm intervening, so what's the area of intervention? It's me and the other person. So there's going to be different types of styles in which I can connect with another individual. But sometimes I don't only want to intervene with one other individual. No, there's going to be a team, a group, a unit, maybe an entire organization, and I want to influence the entire organization. Then we say it's not only the individual, but it's an entire organization. We call this organizational leadership. I have to see, where is the organization headed? What type of dynamic is there? And where do I need to intervene in the organization to have an impact? That's not only dealing with one person, that's really understanding the organizational dynamics and then realizing where I need to have the intervention. But there's also another domain. It's not only when I'm looking at the organizational dynamics, it's also when we're developing strategy. Oh, strategies don't develop themselves. We're all very often creating strategies. When do I need to intervene? When do I need to lead people in strategy development? We call this strategic leadership. So there, as a leader, I need to be the strategist. Again, there's different styles in which I can be a strategic leader. And lastly, there's a situation in which people are asking the question of why. Why are we doing this? So what is it all good for? What's our mission? And there we say, this is about determining the mission, trying to determine the purpose of the organization. And this is what we call leadership and purpose, or leadership and mission. And this is where the leader needs to be a sense maker. Why are we doing this? Please explain to me. And there's different styles, again, in which you can intervene in this area. And by the way, I've skipped one level, which was actually the first. I can actually also influence people even before I intervene, even before I interact with them. Just the very way that I walk into the building, the very way in which I'm present is going to have an impact and is going to give people a sense of, wow, this is a person that's influencing me or not. And we call this leadership and self, in which you're a role model. People look to you and you create confidence or not. You have an influence just by the way that you present yourself. So you don't have to, I put there to the side, you don't have to be an idol, you don't have to be the boss, you don't have to be a hero, all of these things. Sometimes we make leadership a little bit too big. So, oh, you have to be a superhuman as a leader if you're not Nelson Mandela. It's something much smaller. I can be a leader every day to a lot of people. It's something that I can learn. I don't have to become Nelson Mandela. That's out of touch. That's out of reach. But these are 5 areas in which every day I can have an influence. But for these 5 domains, so in each one of these domains, there's different styles that you can use. And are you aware of which style you have, what your preference is? Because without knowing it, you actually already have a leadership style. You just might not be aware exactly what your leadership style is. And the danger of not knowing your own leadership style is that you think that's the way things should be done, so you keep on doing it. And you try it out on some, and so for some people it works, and other people it doesn't work. You think, well, it doesn't work. Well, there's something wrong with them. But if you become aware of your own leadership style, your preferred leadership style, then you start also recognizing, hey, wait a second, this style has advantages and disadvantages, and if I keep on using it on the wrong people, I'm going to experience some of the pitfalls of this style. And what's the alternative? Do I even realize that there's an alternative? And preferably, can I even switch to that alternative if it's necessary? So we want to become agile. We have to understand our own style, and we have to understand what are all some of the alternative styles. And that's basically what this book is about. It's 10 chapters in which we look at certain leadership topics, and we look at what are the opposite types of styles. So what I've done is I've created in these 5 domains which I've just mentioned, in these 5 domains, I said for each one of these, let's look at the key leadership questions that you need to deal with. And for each one of these leadership questions, what are the opposite styles that you can use? Great, thanks. So the logic of what I call the leadership rows, if we let this rows unfold, is here you see that in interpersonal leadership, there's 2 key questions that you need to ask yourself as a leader. How do I steer someone else? How do I try to influence them to move in a certain direction? And how do I give the other person feedback? And for each of these 2 key questions, there's opposite types of styles. So for each question, 2 opposite styles, really absolutely opposite. And the logic goes in the same way all the way around. For organizational leadership, there's 2 opposite questions. Composition, how do I put together a team? And decision making, how do we make decisions in a team? And for each of these 2, there's opposite types of styles. Now, I won't go through all of it because it's very small, but we'll go through them later. But just to show you the logic, 2 leadership questions, opposite styles. 2 leadership questions, opposite styles. 2 leadership questions, opposite styles. This gives us 10 key questions, which are the 10 major chapters in this book. And in each chapter, let's look at, this is the one style, this is the opposite style. Then measure yourself. Where do you see your preference? If I wake you up in the middle of the night, so what's your default style? What do you fall back on? What feels most comfortable? And once you start realizing what you feel is comfortable, you start also realizing, if I feel comfortable here and less comfortable over in the other style, maybe I don't have access to that style. Maybe I don't practice that other style. Maybe I'm not using it enough, and therefore that makes me less agile. I'm stuck in my favorite style. Your own strength becomes your own pitfall, because your own strength, you keep on doing it. I don't know how many of you play football or have played football in the past. You'll recognize immediately you have a favored leg. And I could have said something, maybe if you play tennis, you have a favored arm. But let's stick with football. You have a favored leg, your right leg or your left leg. It's our default leg. If the ball comes and I can use one of my legs, I'm going to use my favored one, the one that I'm good at. You know what makes you a good football player? Do you think it's becoming better and better and better at using your favorite leg? Or does it mean also developing the ability to kick with your other leg? What makes you more agile? Well, obviously, if the ball comes your way, if there's a pass, you say, you have to kick it to my right leg because my left leg doesn't work. So you're not going to win. Because now everyone has to adapt themselves to you. No, I only want the ball to my right leg. Be happy that I'm playing the ball to you in the first place. Deal with it. If you actually are good at playing with your right leg and your left leg, it doesn't matter where the ball comes. You can take it with either one. Now this leg is going to be fantastic, and this one's going to be okay. You know what you're going to practice on most? On the okay leg. Because the better you get at your weak leg, the more you're going to be agile. The same thing goes for leadership styles. You want to practice the ones that come least naturally to you. The ones you're good at, you're already good at. Okay, you can get better at them, but you probably want to practice on the things you're least good at. Do you see how this is different than what a lot of people will tell you in the past? Build on your strengths. Do what you're good at. Specialize on your strengths. The worst advice ever to someone who wants to be a leader. Building on your strengths makes sense if you become a specialist. If you're really very, very good at physics, and they say, you're good at physics, build on your strengths, become a specialist, get better and better and better and better at that one thing. Makes absolute sense. If you want to become a concert pianist, great. Become really, really good at classical piano. Only don't play at weddings, because you're not going to be very agile. The reality is that as a manager, and particularly if you want to lead, you can't always pick the people you want to lead. You're going to have to deal with diversity, and therefore that means you have to be agile. That means don't get stuck in your strengths. So, with this a little bit longer than half an hour first introduction, what I would like to do is now that I've hopefully convinced you that having all of these different styles makes sense. It's good to understand yourself, understand your preferred styles, maybe practice on some of the styles you feel uncomfortable with, and recognize the advantages and disadvantages of each style. I'm just going to go into a few of them, but I just wanted to pause for a moment and check with you whether you have any questions. Any questions so far? This is either a good sign or a bad sign. Yes?
Just. Ron, thank you for this introduction, but how it's different from situational leadership, which was quite popular like years ago?
Yes.
Can you just explain the difference between these two?
So the whole idea of situational leadership is 50 years old. And the idea of situational leadership is that you need to adapt yourself to the situation. Excellent idea. So I basically just build on the idea of situational, but the framework of situational leadership says there's 4 situations in the entire world. So everything in the entire world is being brought back to these 4 situations. Understand, this is situation B, that's the right style. Oh no, this is situation D, that's the right style. And I'm saying there's millions of different situations and you can never know exactly which one solution will fit where. So since you don't know exactly which situation you're in, it's about the person. It's about the environment, it's about the organization, it's about some of the challenges that we have. And you're trying to find in your repertoire what makes sense. So the more agile you are, you're not coming in, okay, situation C, that's very mechanistic. So yes, it's the same, you could say the same philosophy, but now taken to a little bit more sophistication. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you very much. How do you consider leadership-like skills? Is it international or have some regional specificities? So to be leader in Europe, to be leader in Russia, how do you compare, consider it?
So this is absolutely one of the situations, and this is why it's very, very difficult to have leadership theories which are applicable in all cultures. Because not only is each individual different, not only is each situation different, but every culture is also different. So you need to avoid normative theories which say, this is bad leadership, this is good leadership. Because if you say bad and good, probably it's good in your culture. So this is the arrogance sometimes of Western thinkers, that they say, we can just export it to any other culture. Maybe this is a little bit the Canadian in me, who's always worried about Americans exporting their theories to Canada and say, Canadians, they're just Americans without guns. Well, Canadians always like to think that they're much more different than Americans, not only in their guns. So I'm a little bit always thinking, a lot of theories have this cultural assumptions in the basis. So in my approach, I'm saying, look, this is logically the entire spread of leadership styles, and basically what I do every time is I describe white and black. Say these are the 2 opposites. In reality, of course, there's a lot of mixes in between. So there's many, many different ways in which you can try to balance and mix the different opposites, and you have to then look at, given my culture, given my team, given my situation, given this person, so what will fit? So, and in that sense, I can never say, in Russia, this is what you should do. In Indonesia, this is what you should. Because sometimes you might be a little bit Russian, but sometimes you might be a little bit some more. It might be because you're a woman. It might be because you're from Moscow. It might be because you're in a certain type of. You're much more complex than only being Russian. There's many, many parts that make you an individual, and I have to think of all of these things. So no, but I already understand Russians. This is the Russian approach. It's not that simple. But it means that you write a book that doesn't say, these are the 5 steps to success. This is how you should do it in Russia. I'm basically saying, there's all of these different styles. Good luck. Well, can't you be a little bit more specific, Ron? No. No, because there's too many different situations. I don't know. But basically I'm saying, if you have all of these different types of styles, you can probably change yourself in different cultures. It will actually make you much more sensitive. Remember I said agility is flexibility, adaptability, and responsiveness. So cultural responsiveness. I'm now in Turkey. Things are different here. So I'm now in Brazil. Things are different here. So once you start thinking less in simple formulas and more in how do I broaden my repertoire of behaviors, now hopefully I'm going to be more able to deal with this type of situation, but I still don't know everything for sure. Useful? Yes?
Good evening, Ron. My name is Anastasia. Thank you very much for this presentation. Well, my question is about the leadership. You talk about flexibility, all these components of agile ability, but what about the personality of the leader? Because we know a lot of examples in the history when the leader has, well, sometimes maybe he has all of these components, but he looks like a very strong man or a very, let's say, famous for being even cruel. So he has his special style of leadership, which sometimes does not look like very responsive or maybe too much adaptive to some, I don't know, people around or situations around. So, for example, Margaret Thatcher or Steve Jobs, who is famous for his style of interaction with employees. But on the other side, they are leaders still. And what can you please explain about personality by this leadership? Because what I'm thinking of is how not to lose yourself being too much of agile ability. When you become too much adaptive to others, what is about you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So two very interesting parts to your question. Let me take the second part first and then I'll go back. So what about not losing yourself? And I think that's a very, very important question. I said earlier, this whole, one of the things that's very often told, build on your strengths. One of the other things that's often told, you need to be authentic. So you need to be true to yourself and you don't lose yourself, don't fake. Isn't Ron just saying, fake it? So do what the others want to do, play a role and give them what they want, but it's not really you. Just manipulate them. But it's very good to realize that this is, so in the very last chapter, what I write about, is there's the paradox of authenticity and adjustment. So you, to a certain extent, you need to be true to yourself and you need to adjust yourself to others. And now this is a balancing act. If I'm staying too close to myself, I just say, well, you're going to have to take me the way I'm Donald Trump. You're going to just have to take me the way I am. Which means that some people are going to love you and other people are going to hate you. It's not very, it's not very agile, that's for sure. And it's probably very often not very effective either. But if I'm only adjusting myself, there's two big dangers. I'm only doing what the other wants. I can lose myself and I can be seen as a fake. So I'm constantly balancing between, I want to bring myself, I want to be true to myself, but I also have to be aware of what the other wants as well. But isn't this life in all of our relationships? If I'm too close to myself, they're going to have to just take me as I am. That's what a lot of people, it's a good excuse to say, I don't have to think about anybody else. They should just think about me. But you recognize those people around you also that are always groveling and doing what the other wants. So we're looking, and I would say, again, from an agility perspective, if you can play around with this, now I really need to adapt. This is what's really required. If I adjust myself here, now it's going to be effective. But I want to do so in a way that I'm not seen as a fake, and I'm not seen as manipulative. So I have to be honest enough, but I also have to be empathetic enough. There's other moments in which I say, no. I have to be predictable now. I have to be very clear, not only for me, but the other has to see this is what I stand for. Now I have to be more consistent. I don't know how many of you have more than one child, but sometimes you have to treat the children different, and other times you have to treat the children the same. Because if you start treating them differently, they'll say, hey, that's not fair. Who's the real mom? Because you're this style to her and you're this style to me. Hey, that's not fair. You're manipulating me. No, I'm adapting to you. No, this is not fair. So sometimes you think, not a good idea now to be too, I have to have one predictable style. So you see that when I say, as a leader, you need to be agile, agile doesn't mean that you're always adaptive to the other. but you have the ability to if you think it's a good idea. So being agile means you have the potential to adapt yourself, to adjust yourself to the specific situation, but sometimes it's still not a good idea, and I'm going to use the same style because I think it's better. Now, the first part of your question was, what about these charismatic dictators? So, who still everyone thinks, wow, this is... In reality, this is the ultimate form of management. So, because you'll have some people who really believe in this, and for whom they are a leader, they will wholeheartedly, the charismatic, whether it was Hitler or another dictator, some people will truly believe and they'll follow. I always say to Americans, one of the dangers of a charismatic leader, so we all know from the Second World War, and they say, what do you mean? I say, you know the German word for leader. And it's not a bad word in German for nothing. And they say, no, I don't speak any German. I said, but you know the German word for leader. They said, no, I don't. I say, yes, you do. Der Führer. So Hitler was called the Führer, the leader, and for a reason. So for some people, he really was the charismatic leader that they believed in, and all of the others were compliant, which we showed earlier. They were compliant because they were too scared to do anything else. What was the overall performance of the organization? It's not as good as if people really would have been felt that he was the leader. So sometimes we have people who, by the situation, by their background, by their personality, can be very charismatic. They can be very appealing. People will believe in them. Steve Jobs, you gave the example. But these people are the exception. The only reason Steve Jobs got away with it, by the way, he was first fired because he was a bad leader. He came back. He was very, very successful. But what actually happened is that he self-selected. Most people hated his guts. Those people left. And the only people that stayed were the people who did feel connected to him. So he actually created his own mini-universe with people who loved Steve Jobs or could deal with Steve Jobs. So if you have the opportunity to create your own team, your own organization, and you don't have to adapt yourself to the others, they will all adapt themselves to you, then you're fine. Then you can always just say, I'm going to do it my way. But how many of us can create an organization exactly the way that we like? Steve Jobs, in that sense, he created Apple so he could create the Apple organization. And therefore, it was a mirror of him and what fit with him. Most of us are not that lucky. We really have to deal with an organization that we didn't create. And still we want to be effective. Then we're going to have to adjust ourselves to them. Any other questions?
Ron, thank you for a great presentation. I have a question. Just when a person starts thinking about his leadership style, he looks at himself through the prism of his perception.
Yes.
And this perception is very subjective.
Yes.
What is your practical advice, just how to be objective in viewing yourself?
Impossible. So therefore, now it's one of the people we know the least is us ourselves. So the only way to really understand who you are yourself is to listen to many others. And not only one other, but to many others. So there is no such thing as objectivity, but you can have many subjective opinions. And when you cross all of these subjective opinions, we call it intersubjectivity. It means that we have so many subjective opinions. Hey, if there's a common denominator, that actually might be pretty close to the truth. We sometimes call it wisdom of crowds. So what you need to do is to organize your own feedback. So make sure that, and that could be a written feedback, that could be, you have these online systems, but it also could be just, how do I get people around me to tell me about me? And for some people, of course, good friends, they'll be a little bit more honest. And for some other, you need a lot of beer or vodka. So, no, I'm kidding, but very often one of a great moment of getting feedback is after 2 glasses of vodka, because people will then, their tongue will be a little bit loose, not too loose, because otherwise you can't understand them anymore. But people will start telling you things that they would normally not tell you. So it's really about how do I organize my own feedback. It's very important that people feel safe in giving you feedback, that you're gracious in receiving the feedback, that you can actually ask follow-up questions which are going to help people to come up with the feedback, and then to make sure that you listen to many different types of people. So that's the only way to really understand you, because you can't see yourself through, we say sometimes look in the mirror, but you still see yourself through your own eyes. So one of the things that I've done as a result of this book is I've created a leadership style 360-degree. So I've just have an online tool so that you can use, and you can send it to the people around you and saying, give me feedback on my leadership style. And then they can score you and they say, oh, this is your strength, this is your weakness. So, and if you do that with 10 people, 15 people, you start getting, and by the way, then also fill it in yourself before you've seen their scores. And then it's very interesting to see whether your self-perception and the perception of others is very different. Organize your own feedback. It's the only way to really learn. Is that useful? Any other questions at the moment? While you think of some questions, what I'd like to do is just to show you some of these opposite leadership styles, because it's still very abstract. So, but let's make some of them more tangible so that you can also start seeing, hey, where am I? And so I'm going to ask you, so on this very first one, where you feel most comfortable, on which side? So I'm going to start with the one of interpersonal steering. So this is very close to what we recognize. Most of the leadership literature, 90% of the leadership literature is written by psychologists, and psychologists study individuals, so they tend to very much look at how one person deals with the other. So most of the leadership literature is actually at this level of interpersonal. Now if you look at some of the literature, they'll say, well, there's different ways in which you can steer people. I'm not a psychologist, I'm a business person, so I look at it from an influencing, how do I get people to have certain types of behaviors? And there's 2 opposite ways. And the 2 opposite ways, before I show them, I will explain them with, again, an analogy. It won't be horses this time. It won't be husbands and wives this time. It will be traffic. About 15 years ago, research was done into how can we create less traffic deaths, because for some years, the number of people dying in traffic was getting less and less. But in many countries, it was stuck at a certain level and they couldn't get traffic deaths down. So they're trying to get safer cars. But there's only so much you can do in terms of making vehicles safer. You need to make the roads safer. So in many cities, they were putting in more and more traffic lights. And generally, traffic lights help. Because if you have a normal intersection, very often it's the one with the biggest car has the right of way. It should be, of course, traffic from the right has the right of way, but it's usually who has the biggest car or who is there first. But if you put in traffic lights, you have less accidents. So if you drive around the city and there's so many traffic lights, very often there's places you think, why are the traffic lights here? Probably because there was an accident 10 years ago. And they put in traffic lights and now we're still stuck with the traffic lights. They did research. Do you know in which country in Europe has the least number of traffic deaths per kilometer driven? There's one country that it's the safest in all of Europe. Finland, Sweden, I hear, no, but it's not. Netherlands, Iceland, no. Germany, France, no. Denmark, no. It's somewhere a place you wouldn't expect, but it's 30 to 40% fewer deaths than in all other countries in Europe. So not by a tiny margin, by a huge margin. It's the UK. Now you might think, start driving on the left-hand side. No, so they looked into it and no, it has nothing to do with driving on the left-hand side. Do you know what the secret was of English safety? The roundabout. In Russia, there's also more roundabouts being built. That's why. That's why 15 years ago they found out Britain was the only country in the world where they had a lot of roundabouts. But if you start thinking about it, what does a roundabout do? So there's 3 different types of intersections. There's an intersection which is every man for himself. There's an intersection with traffic lights, and there's an intersection with a roundabout. Now, if it's a free-for-all, that's the most dangerous. The analogy is, if in an organization you say, good luck, so fight it out yourself, things are not going to go well. So people are not going to coordinate, there's going to be a lot of accidents. So eventually we say, you know what we need? We need somebody to be clear and saying, look, this is what we need to do. Somebody has to start steering the traffic. So at an intersection, instead of saying, it's a free-for-all, we're going to control what happens at the intersection. And the control is done by traffic lights. Stop. No, okay, go, stop, go. So you have a controller determining how things are going to go, and the controller steers the intersection, and the participants have to do what they're told. Because if you don't do what you're told, you get a traffic fine. So, it's a red light. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. There's no traffic. But it's a red light. I have to do what I'm told. So you do what you're told. It's safer than no lights at all. But interestingly, what happens if you put in a roundabout? What's the difference between the traffic lights and the roundabout to the participants? What does a roundabout do? It what? So the traffic lights are gone. So how does it not become a mess? So they all have to go in the same direction, and actually, even most importantly, they have to slow down. So what you do is you create conditions at the intersection, and you create conditions by which you can actually influence what happens without telling them what to do. See, this indirect ability to influence the situation. I'm not telling you what to do as a car. Actually, I'm empowering the drivers. At the intersection, why is it safer in a roundabout? Because at the traffic lights, people don't think anymore. They're just, red. And sometimes, green, okay, they'll drive, and then they'll still get hit because they're not thinking anymore. But at a roundabout, you have to always think. So you're empowering the person driving the car. They have to think for themselves, they have to do for themselves, but you're creating conditions under which they have to slow down. The traffic is all going in the same direction. It's easier to see what's coming. So you can actually create controlled behavior. You're creating controlled behavior without directly telling people what to do. Do you see the difference? If you translate that to a situation in which you're trying to influence as a leader, sometimes you influence directly. I think we should be doing this. And the next moment you say, no, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to create a roundabout that's going to more or less guide you into moving a certain way. So I'm empowering you, but without letting you go. Because I'm going to let you go. Intersection without any, but then there's no control. So this is what we call indirect control or indirect steering. So as a leader, there's moments, so the question is, how do I make sure that others behave according to plan? So the style which we call supervisory leadership, I'm supervising, I'm actually advising the other on what to do. I'm directly trying to influence. I'm directly trying to steer. That doesn't mean I don't want to manage you. I don't want to bully you. I want to connect with you, but I'm going to give you advice, and I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to say, okay, I think we should be doing this now, and I want you to leave my office with your heart and mind and all enthusiastic, but I'm directly steering the direction in which you're going. Or I'm going to use a facilitative style in which I say, no, I'm going to empower you, but I do want to create the right conditions that I almost know for sure that you're going to head in the right direction. You feel empowered, but you're not all on your own. So I'm still steering, but I'm not steering by saying what the activities need to be. I'm steering by creating the right conditions. And do you see how for different people you might need to have different styles? And so if I now would ask you, what type of style for you feels most comfortable? When you try to steer most people, not what you use most, but what do you find more comfortable? Do you find it more comfortable to tell people what you think needs to be done? Do you like to steer directly? Do you like to be in control, direct control? Or are you more somebody who says, no, I like creating the conditions. I'm going to empower people, but I'm going to create the conditions which are going to facilitate people to still head in the right direction. How many of you feel more comfortable being a supervisory leader? So about half of you. So that means the other half, I'm just checking whether the others are sleeping. How many of you feel more comfortable being a facilitative leader? Yeah, so it's about 50-50. So once you start recognizing what you feel comfortable doing, probably in most cases, the one that you find most comfortable, you'll do the most. And you'll do it also sometimes when it's not the right situation. If I'm a facilitative leader, typically I say, you need to empower people, give them some room to maneuver, so that creates a lot of energy. But very often the pitfall, what do you think the pitfall is of being a facilitative leader? Yeah, you lose control when you actually should be in control. If there's a crisis, if something is mission critical, if the people don't know what they're doing, I have to be able to directly intervene and sometimes say, please help us, we don't know what's happening, so please come and help us. You say, no, I'm facilitating here. So I'm empowering you. I don't want to be empowered. If I'm with my child and I'm learning the child to cycle, and I'll say, here, so go, not a cycle by yourself. No, Dad, hold on. No, I'm empowering you. No, hold on. So there's a moment at which empowerment actually is a good thing, and there's other moments at which people don't find that the right style. They want you to be there with them. They want you to be in battle with them. They say, please help us because we want to have a hands-on person there helping us, guiding us. Don't empower us, help us. They're basically saying, come over here. Now you're over here because you find this very comfortable. What's the pitfall of being a supervisory leader? You control freak, so you micromanager, so you working till 12 o'clock at night, person. So, yeah, you're in control, but you're driving people crazy. You're driving yourself crazy because you feel that you need to be on top of things. And a lot of people, just tell me what to do because so very often people will feel disempowered. They won't feel that you're leading anymore. They'll feel that you've become a manager. Do you see how even the same person that you're dealing with might even go back and forth between these on one day? So if you stay to the side that feels comfortable to you, before you know it, says that you're going to be doing the right thing, but at the wrong moment to the wrong person. Because this is not a wrong style, it's just not a suitable style all the time. And this is not it's not old-fashioned and new. It's just two good styles, but you have to be able to use them at the right moment. Yeah, shall I throw in a second one? So just to get a little bit into the feel of the opposite styles. How do you give people feedback? There's, again, very, very opposite ways of giving people feedback. Maybe I was watching the football championships this summer, And you could see the different coaches with very, very different types of styles. So some of the coaches, they were standing along the side and they were screaming, "Come on, you can do better. Come on, you go out there." Blah, blah, blah. So what were they doing? Why were they shouting? Why were they? They were actually it wasn't their intention to tell their people that they were stupid, but they basically were saying, "This isn't good enough. I'm challenging you to do better. This is what you're doing now, and this is the behavior I want. There's a gap. And this gap, I want you to jump higher." And we call that type of challenging, we call that a demanding style. So when you're a demanding coach, you say, "Come on, do better." If you come into someone's office and they say, "Well, this quarter, you've done so, but I think that this can be improved, and that can be improved, and that can be improved. Come on, you can do it." If you leave the office thinking, "I'm going to show that I can actually do that. Yeah, he's right. That's something that I really should do better." This can be a very powerful way of motivating somebody by challenging them. Do you recognize that that might not always be the best way of motivating somebody? It's when my daughter comes and she says, "Hey, Dad, look, so I have this drawing of you." If I say, "Well, actually, I was counting on me having 5 fingers, and it only has 3. And by the way, I don't have green hair, but my hair is actually blonde. Go and do it again." So I'm challenging you to do it again. Might not be the right thing to do, because that's not what is really needed to motivate that person. I might want to challenge my football player, but in some cases, what I want to do is I want to show not what's wrong, but what's right. So if you're challenging a person, you're basically saying, "This isn't good enough." The opposite is to say, not "that's wrong" or "it's not good enough," but "this is good." "Oh, this is good and that's good." Build on some of these things that are good. And this is what we call an encouraging leadership style. So what I'm doing is I'm showing appreciation. I'm saying, "Look, I know things are," if I'm a football coach, "Hey, take it easy. No, I know there's things going wrong. But look, this is going right, and that went right, and that went right. Let's build on these things that are going right. And I know, and I trust you. And during the practice, we did these same things. So don't look at the things that are going wrong. Let's build on these strengths, and let's keep on doing more of this." Yeah, we can do it. So you can build a lot of confidence by showing confidence. You're showing appreciation, focusing on what goes well. What's the pitfall here? What happens if you encourage the wrong person or in the wrong situation? Do you recognize some of your bosses in the past? That if you came into their office and say, "Oh, yes, you're doing a fantastic job." "Well, we just lost quite a bit of money." "No, but a great job, and I really appreciate you." And then they don't spit out that there's a real problem. You kind of dance around the problem. So they're too soft, they're too nice, they're too afraid of conflict. So you always leave the office thinking, "Well, that was useless. What a weak." So all of these compliments, they don't really mean anything anymore. You always give a compliment to say, "It's meaningless. I don't really believe you anymore." And by the way, a lot of the problems still need to be solved. What happens if you're over here and you're very challenging and you're very demanding? What's the pitfall? Yeah, it can be demotivating. "Oh, my boss is never satisfied. It doesn't matter what I do." So he'll still see that there's, he said, "Well, there, and I'm now here." And then he said, "Yeah, but we can also go there." Come on. So he's not constructively dissatisfied. He's destructively dissatisfied. The big danger of the demanding style is you don't challenge somebody in a way that's good for them. You challenge them because you need to have certain performance. Well, I need to solve my problem. I'm just going to give you my problem, and I'm going to demand that you help me to get to my targets. That's not what that person needs. It's what you need. So we can start demanding things in a very unreasonable type of way. Can you easily switch from one to the other? Not very many people can. A lot of people feel very comfortable being the tough guy, it's always challenging. Other people feel very comfortable always being positive and encouraging. And it might not always be that effective to stay in that type of a style. Before I carry on, do you see how these styles are absolute opposites? But do you also see how they're black and white, and you could actually make a mix of the different styles? You can actually start playing around with them, particularly if you feel comfortable doing the one and comfortable doing the other. Then you can start mixing them and feeling comfortable. Do you know why people are very often stuck in one style? Why they're not agile? And why does this become your comfort zone? Very often because of your history. So the older you are, the more time you've had to build up a comfort zone and to build up a bias. So if you're old, so like me, and you're, say, very encouraging, you've done it so often, you're kind of stuck in this routine, but it's also you have a lot of baggage. You'll have had a boss in the past. You'll say, oh yeah, I used to have a boss who was very demanding. Oh, and he was horrible, and it was this and that and that. No, I've never wanted to be like my boss or my mother. So very often it's your past that determines that you come and sit over here. And you know what it is? Many of the things that you hate about the other style are true. Because you know what a demanding style? Your demanding style can be demotivating, it can be unreasonable, it can be destructive, it can be asking too much, and it's all true. Those are the pitfalls of that style. But if you only see the pitfalls, we say you're allergic to the pitfalls, you'll stay over here. But you also have to see the advantages of the other style. But you don't want to see those because I already know that style. It's a bad style. My mother, or you're on the other side. So we build up over time. The longer you have experience, you think that wisdom comes with age. Unfortunately, actually conservatism comes with age. We don't get more agile over our lives. We don't become wiser. We become more of a one-trick pony. So we start getting better and better, doing more and more the same, and after a while, you're a caricature of who you, when you were 25, you were much more flexible, and now you're stuck in your ways. Just think of your own parents. Did they become wiser over age? I hope some of them do. Most don't. So your challenge is, how can I make sure that I actually belong to the 10% that actually over time actually starts learning new things and doesn't get stuck in that one style? It's not easy because you can understand these different styles intellectually, but that doesn't mean that you can actually do them, because doing them is actually really a matter of practice. It's a matter of trying it out, doing it again, getting feedback, learning, trying again and again, and after a while, it's just like with your left leg. The first couple of times you kicked, it was horrible. But after a couple of trainings, it gets better and better. It's hard work. So, how are you doing with your questions? Yes?
I like this part about roundabouts, and my question is, do you have any practical examples of some procedures in organizations that became such roundabouts?
Yes.
You know, because usually procedures are like traffic lights, so do you have some examples of changes and making these roundabouts in organizations?
Yes, so in the book, there's actually also a little...
Expected that this is in the book.
Yeah. But let me just explain a little bit. So the idea of a roundabout, literally I made the drawing in the book also as a roundabout. So there it's a matter of, if I want to create those circumstances, what are the right circumstances? The first circumstance is, first I don't empower someone all at once. Someone has to, so I don't build a roundabout all at once in the organization. I'm first supervising somebody, and I have to train them over time to start facilitating them more and more. So typically I'll first give them a little bit of responsibility and a little bit of room to maneuver. Then I have to give them the right abilities that they actually can do, so what's necessary. So typically what I need to do is I need to make sure that they have the right knowledge, the right skills. So I need to take away some of the barriers. So I have to try to create the abilities by which they can start doing things themselves. Then what I also need to do is not only giving them the ability, but also giving them the mindset and the view. So if I start using a vision and a mission to give them a sense of where they're going, I can let them go because they understand the game plan. In the military, they call that the commander's intent. If you know what the commander wants in general, then you know the overall direction, then you can be let go because you understand what needs to be done and you can figure it out yourself. And then you need to get feedback so on, okay, how am I doing? And then I can get some more freedom to maneuver. And then I can get some more abilities. I can better understand the direction we're going. I'm getting some more feedback. So I need to go around the roundabout a few times and become more and more empowered. And then as a leader, I can give you more and more freedom, and I can facilitate at more and more distance. And that way, actually, over time, people can gain more freedom. But it's not something that from one day to the next you say, okay, from now on, you're empowered, good luck. So now that's the general way in which you want to empower people. What does an organization look like? Well, then you get into some interesting literature around organizational agility and what an agile organization looks like, but that would be going a little bit too far. So, but you're right that for some of these styles, that fits very, very well with flatter organizations, more agile organizations. But then you also need to adapt your leadership style. So typically you would use more facilitative leadership style in a more flatter, agile organization. So I understand that some people already needed to leave, and I don't want to overstay my welcome, but maybe so one or two last questions. We're doing okay? So let's see if we can draw some conclusions. These are just two of the dimensions which I just wanted to show. Let me just give you one last one. I'll just pop through. So if I'm making decisions, do I want them to be more autocratic or more democratic? When it comes to the types of goals that I set, maybe this is the last one which I'll show you, we sometimes think that leaders always need to be visionary. I go, no. So there we're trying to balance between having an ideal which we want to strive towards, or having something very tangible and realistic that we're going to be doing tomorrow. So sometimes I want to be a visionary leader saying, this is where we need to go in the future. And you actually want to have some type of what we call a bold goal, something which isn't very tangible. It's more of the stars that you're reaching towards. And with that vision, you actually inspire people to help you to co-create the future. They go, oh, how are we going to get there? I don't know, help me. So as a visionary leader, this is a way of mobilizing people to co-create. And then there's other moments at which you don't want to give people a vision and help them co-create. You want to say, okay, now this is what we're going to do the coming year. We're going to do this and this and this. Oh, God, fantastic. Now you're being very clear. This is exactly what I want. Do you see how that sometimes if you read books on leadership, they say, oh, leaders are always visionary. I go, no. Don't always be visionary. I see some managers who come and they say, oh, I'm going to be the visionary. I said, that's not what the people need. They've already had a lot of visionary stuff. If they want more vision, so they'll just start drinking. So give them something more tangible. And if you say, okay, this is what we're going to do, finally a little bit more concreteness. This is exactly what we needed. So there's some moments at which I tell more senior people in the organization that want to lead, I say, don't start with the vision stuff. That's not what people need. Yeah, but I have to be visionary. No, you don't. So here again, this is, I hope that I've encouraged you to, or at least that you now feel a certain eagerness or hunger to read the other ones. So I don't want to go into all of the details. Here again, this is just as an introduction to tell you a little bit about the philosophy behind all of this. And the conclusion, more or less, as we said before, if leadership is a skill by which you're influencing the other to get them to come along on that voyage, this is something that requires practice in getting good at these different ways of influencing people. It's something that everyone can learn. It just takes a lot of effort and a lot of perseverance. And some of them might be easier for you, and you don't have to learn them all, but at least try to broaden your repertoire a bit. And yes, you need 360-degree feedback, but one of the things you can try to make it easy for yourself, just ask some people whether you can practice on them. So once you start saying, I'm going to start practicing some more pragmatic leadership or more visionary leadership, just try to find some environments in which you can try it out. And if you don't want to try it out at work, do it at your sports club or do it at your family gathering. So just try to find an environment in which you can try out some of these styles. And once you start getting the hang of it, you can start using them more often. I was just saying to some of my colleagues, we sometimes overestimate our ability as academics because we think that once you understand things, you will do them. But in reality, you can understand a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have the skills to actually do it. It's what we call the knowing-doing gap. The only way to bridge the knowing-doing gap is that once we understand things, practice, practice, practice. I might know in theory how to hit a ball. That doesn't mean that I can actually do it. So once you've gotten your MBA, that's when the real work starts, because you have all of the ideas, but now you have to practice. So on that note, good luck with the practice in the coming years. So, I hope that I now have some ambassadors who are going to go back to their companies and say, I have this great book. And at least you have a present for Christmas if you're looking for something to give your mother. So thank you very much. Yeah, so now, just a last thing, which is, this was a very expensive book, so not because I wanted any royalties, but you realize that if a book is written in their native language, there's still all the costs of producing it. Now it also had to be translated. So giving away books to all of you would be much too expensive. But I was given 3 books that I was allowed to give away. Then it was suggested, give it to some people who are most active in asking questions, or who had the very, very best questions. So I'm just going to, at random, give them to people whose questions I really liked. So I'm going to give you, thank you, that was a fantastic question. And you also had a very nice question. And the most challenging question of all came from there, but it was also the best one. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, and enjoy the weekend.